Hey everybody, and welcome back to Chat with AP. I'm your host, Amanda Pearch. This is where we kick back, have fun, and dive into all kinds of conversations. Get comfy and let's see where today's chat takes us.
20 years of having a microphone in my face and a helicopter, so I mean...
You're good.
So, this
got
is,
it. You're on it. You might have a career in radio.
Yeah, I have a face for it.
Yeah, you owe me $1. Okay. When I started in this business, I'm just kidding. Everybody says that. And it's funny because nobody can see your face.
Yeah.
Except we will be taking some photos and it'll appear this big online.
A friend of mine says he has a face for radio and a voice for print. I mean, it's just like, so. I'm John Withers, and this is Chat with AP.
I'm Karen Zapp, and this is Chat with AP.
Well, I am so excited because we are here at Thrive in Suwanee. I am joined by two of my friends.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for referring to me as a friend. That's a compliment that I treasure highly. There we go.
There's that French again. We were speaking it earlier.
Yes.
Parlez-vous français?
Un petit peu.
Un petit.
Yeah, un petit peu. Je suis étudiant at GGC. And Dr. Malden would be very upset with me at this point,
Un peu is all I know.
Yeah,
that's a little bit.
Yeah.
Un peu.
Yeah. Un petit peu is very little.
Un petit peu.
Yeah. It's c'est opposite of beaucoup. Beaucoup.
Yes.
Or so.
Well, we don't have subtitles on radio.
I had to pick up French because Karen was brushing up on her. Well, Karen used to speak German, and then she is learning Spanish. So every time she mutter something in another language, I'm assuming it's about me, and so therefore I had to come up with a language that so I can mutter something back at her. So it's actually cut down her muttering a little bit. So
I forgot you were doing that, Karen.
Yeah. No, I still am. So. I did take the last semester off, but I'll be taking another class here in the fall. So the goal is to get fluent.
Mm-hmm.
So,
are you learning Spanish for a specific reason, or was it because you simply wanted to learn another language and challenge your mind, or do you have a trip to Spain upcoming that you wanted to be fluent for?
What was maybe a little bit reason? Of all of the above, but the primary initial trigger was we want to be able to give these classes in Spanish as well.
So you can deliver your content bilingually.
That's the goal. Now,
wow.
It's easier said than done because it's one thing to be able to have a casual conversation. It's another to then teach in the subject, But that's the goal, and I've got a few ideas on how I can really start to
kick it up a notch.
Kick it up a notch. Thank you. Another benefit of doing this is learning a language is excellent for the mind and keeping it active and all those little gray cells, as they talked about in Hercule Poirot. Would talk about his gray cells, keeping them going, and learning a language is fantastic for that.
Well, I tip my hat to you because my mother is from Argentina, and so she's first generation. Spanish was her first language. English was her second. But my out is she married an American man, so we spoke English in the household. I could have taken the bull by the horns and learned myself, and that's something that I can still do. Thank you for the inspiration.
One of the challenges I took Latin in high school because my parents informed me that I was going to take Latin in high school. So all your brothers did it, so you did it. I tried to the old. If my brothers jumped off a bridge, would you? And they didn't like that. But regardless. Spanish and French and the Romance languages have, concepts of gender. They're masculine nouns, feminine nouns. In some cases, some languages have a neuter noun as well. And so therefore, all the adjectives change. They have to take agreement to that. Where we put adjectives and adverbs in English is the opposite of where most other languages put it, whatever. So I can appreciate that. But the biggest thing that I have found for me is the fact that our vowel sounds are different. And, now when I'm in a taxi and somebody's driving me that, it came to this country as an immigrant and they're trying to speak to me and I know they're trying to say English words, but I can't understand it. Now I can appreciate that because they're trying to use the English words with their native language as vowel sounds, and because I tried to do the same thing, so there's a kid in my French class that's from Texas, and he goes, "Hey, parlez-vous français, s'il vous plaît?" I mean, it's just like, and he actually thinks of speaking French, and it's just like, and I'm exaggerating slightly, but I mean, it makes a big difference,
Huge difference.
And then French, they have their secret code letter called R, okay, and it's basically a sound, okay, so. Instead of rendezvous, it's rendezvous. It's like but these are not sounds that we normally make in English unless you've got something caught in your throat.
Right.
I see you scratching your throat as soon as I do it. So it's just like, so I mean, it's
that would be like the R in Spanish.
Right.
Our mouth and our brain isn't used to it, so it's a challenge for you to even grasp the mouth feel.
The rule of the R.
yeah.
Well, speaking of GGC, you just came from GGC.
I just did.
What were you doing there?
I was taking a French class.
Oh, so you're fresh off the French.
Yeah.
How often do you go?
Well, this semester we met twice a week, and we actually had the last class today, and my oral exam is next Wednesday. So I've got until Sunday to get my written composition in, and then we have the as I said, the oral exam, on Wednesday. So that'll be about a 15-minute presentation, in French.
I'm excited to hear how you did after.
I will. Yeah. Well, it's going well so far. I mean, I'm taking it because I'm interested in it. I think a lot of the students, there's about 18 of us. There's a lady who, I'm a bit older than I'm the oldest person in the room. I'm even older than the professor. There's another lady there in the class that's 31, and then everybody else is 18, 19, and 20. Okay, so all born in the 20th century or 21st century. So, 21 cycle, 21st century. So, so it's just interesting perspective. But I'm there because I want to be, and I want to learn the language. I want to get back to it. And, that's not necessarily the motivation of everybody else in the class. I remember what it was like being in college, and, you have things you're worried about. You have your majors courses, and then you have the other stuff you need to do to get your grade. You get the right number of credit hours, So, and it's fair enough that not everybody has the same priority on it, that I do. But, I know what it's like being in college and carrying a full load and doing these things. You're trying to, get everything done all at the same time. Now we're going to have to confess something. Okay.
You don't have to.
Georgia actually has a very good plan for people over the age of 62, of which I now fall into that category, that you can take classes at any Georgia state accredited institution for no tuition.
Cool.
Including pursuing a degree if you wanted to.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
That's fantastic.
Now, I mean, the other incidentals like books and things, of course, but I mean, there's absolutely zero tuition cost. And
That's
so,
exciting.
yeah, it is. So.
So why wouldn't you want to go?
Well, I mean, and I found out about it quite by accident. There was a guy that we were at a Navy birthday ball dinner a couple years ago, and there was a gentleman sitting at our table, and he was taking an improv class. And he was like 65, and he just wanted to do something to stay active and keep his mind going, and he didn't want to learn a language, so he started taking improv. And he says, so he's improvisation with college kids. He said the nice thing about it is I understand my grandkids a heck of a lot more now.
It's benefiting everybody.
He says I don't only see my grandkids every so often, but I see these kids 3 times a week, and I have to react to what they do, and they got to react to what I do. And he says my sense of humor is a lot different than theirs. And so we found out about that. So Karen did a little research, and sure enough, so she started. And then I said, well, shoot, I'll give myself a semester, because I just wasn't sure if I was going to take the time out of the day,
right? To
do that. It is. It's the one, to go to the class, because it's in the middle of the day, and then 2, there is homework. If you want to learn a language, you just can't go to a class twice a week, and then
you have
whatever.
To practice too.
Yeah, you have to do that.
How do you practice your French with your Spanish-speaking wife?
Well, it's one of the things I've started doing is I've been flipping around through YouTube TV and finding French-speaking channels.
Oh, good,
and if I can find a soccer match, a football match,
listen to it
and listen to that, And I tried doing that and listening to it in Spanish, but to me it was a bunch of gibberish with go. That's the only word I get, you know. And
It's
that's
funny you reference that because when my mother shared her story with me about learning English, Sesame Street played a large role in her learning that too.
I've heard that for people
Just
trying to learn
keeping it
English.
on, yeah, because it's, if you think about it, it's the elementary, you know,
Exactly.
geared towards younger people, so that's the basics of the language. But we will attach that to the remainder of our conversation by using lifelong learning as a segue to what you guys do with How Money Works.
Okay.
Now let's pretend like my audience has no idea what this is. Karen, I would like for you to give us come on, from my aviator friend, what's a 1,000 level?
the 30,000 foot view.
30,000 foot view, please.
Well, How Money Works, our mission, our crusade, is to erase financial illiteracy. About 70% of Americans are considered financially illiterate, and we firmly believe that people cannot make sound financial decisions about their personal finances if they don't first understand how money really works. So we lead with that education. The primary book we teach from is called How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker. That was the original book that came out in the very tail end of 2019. And that book to date has been featured in the national media. I think it's about 370 times. We're talking the ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, NBC, Fox, plus all the financial press, Wall Street Journal, and numerous others. It's because it's the real deal. I mean, it's a book that's written so people can actually understand what the heck they're reading, you know, and it's got these 8 characters, and their conversation walks you through the book. So it's meant to be understood for the average person as opposed to someone else in finance. We provide that education, Amanda, in different ways, but not everybody in How Money Works gives the classes like we do, but we enjoy going into classes. We'll go into a business, we'll go into a nonprofit, we'll go into, I don't know, if somebody's home association wanted to have a gathering in the community center. We did that once, yeah. So it doesn't matter where we go, but we go in and we give this class, and again, it's based on that book, and everybody gets a copy of the book at the end. And lasts about an hour. We do not charge for that class because, again, our founder, CEO, if you will, Tom Matthews, and author of the book, just believes that this is information everyone is entitled to have. And so we want that out there. And then, people aren't going to talk about their personal finances in a public setting. You know, they may ask a generic question, but nothing really direct. So if they want to really then dig in, because the knowledge is one thing, but if all you do is just read the book and then set it down and go about your merry way, nothing is going to change. You've got to do something with what you've learned and take action, and we help with that too. The book lays out what we call the 7 money milestones, and if you address each of those areas of your life correctly, because what's right for you is not going to be the same for someone else. As John always says, everyone's financial picture is as unique as a fingerprint.
Huh.
Yeah. So you've really so let's say you were in one of our classes, Amanda. It makes it a little easier to talk that way. And you said, "Yeah, I do have some questions. You know, some of the things I learned here today, I don't think I've got them covered right in my life." So then we meet with you, and it's a conversation, and just to find out, okay, where are you at? What and where do you want to go, and how risk averse are you, or how comfortable are you with risk, and so on and so forth. There's a plethora of questions, and then if we can then figure out, okay, what types of solutions are going to fit for you. We're what you call independent, so we can choose from 140 different providers out there and really tailor something that's right for you. You know, there's not a cookie cutter type solution that's going in there. And I had a thought and it went out there for a second, but no, it may come back to me. But then we'll make some recommendations, and if you say yes, I like that, and go forward with it, then John has got a number of licenses. He's got all of his different securities licenses, if you will. So I have life and health, and he's got that plus all the security licenses. So he's referred to it as investment advisor rep.
Ooh.
So again, we can, and the thing that I think is neat about How Money Works is that we do take a team approach, because let's say there was something in your situation, Amanda, that was rather unique, and maybe we hadn't encountered it before. We can reach out to other folks on the team, and of course everything's always confidential. We're all financial professionals, so it always remains confidential, but we can reach out to the team and say, hey, have you encountered this situation before? I almost guarantee you we're going to find someone that has, so that we can draw on that expertise and make sure that we're always coming up with the best solution for every client. So I think that's kind of unique too. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the one person shops or anything, but I just, I think there's strength in numbers too.
For those of you who are just joining us, I'm seated here with Karen and John, and they are with How Money Works. But I'd like to turn the conversation just briefly that you both have some military experience, and we've kind of been including that in our conversation. So just kind of share with our listeners what you did as far as serving our country.
Oh, well, thank you for the chance to do that, Amanda. I grew up in a military family. My father did not serve in World War II. He had a job he had a deferment because of his job. He was in a highly technical electrical job. But all of my uncles on both sides of the family served in World War II. I am a seventh generation military veteran. I have a great-great-great-grandfather that died in the Civil War. I have relatives in the War of 1812, and actually on my mother's side, they've been able to translate, go back to having one of the ancestors as signed up as a patriot of the American Revolution. So I was never encouraged to go in the military, but it was never discouraged either. Okay, I had the extreme good fortune. I'm not going to go into the story about how it happened, but I had the extreme good fortune of being selected to go to the Naval Academy, and that literally changed the trajectory of my life. Once I graduated, I was selected to go to flight training. I was a helicopter pilot. I did a full Navy career. Flew in some counterinsurgency operations down in Central America during the Reagan administration, and then I commanded a helicopter unit in Desert Storm. Came back from that, and toward the end of my career, I crossed paths with Karen, who was also serving naval officer at the time, and I'll let her tell her story. And then after I retired, Karen and I, got married not long after that. And then I have just been I have always maintained a strong relationship with my academy classmates. I am the class secretary for our class, which means that I write a monthly column of what my classmates are doing, which means that I know a lot more of my classmates now than I did when I was there, So, but it is so neat, because even if there's somebody that, some of my best friends down here in Atlanta now are guys I didn't know at the Naval Academy, but we become good friends because we all have that common bond. And but I've been very fortunate. I have two older brothers. Both of them went to Vietnam. They both came home. Yes, and they. I've been able. I came out completely healthy and unscathed. I haven't had any, PTSD issues and those kind of things. And so therefore.
And you scored a babe.
So, yeah. Well, I certainly did that. As my brother said, I went way above my pay grade on that one. So when my brothers, I'm not making this up. When my brothers met Karen, one of the big television shows at the time was Survivor. It was just starting to become huge. Okay. So when my brothers met Karen, they got together and they voted me off the island, and we're going to keep her. So
why did you have to be? No one should have to leave the island. You're bringing her into the family.
I'm the mouthy little brother. So and it's just like brothers. No matter how old they are, brothers are brothers. So
they like to razz you.
They do. So.
Well, I joked before the show, just having spent some time with Karen before even meeting you, how well yoked I believe you are. Your personalities seem to go hand in hand, and you guys really yield to each other in conversation. I don't know if it's just because we're on the air, but you have your own language that I've observed through talking to both of you, and that's very interesting.
It's been an acquired skill, I think. I mean, I'm not.
Oh yeah,
it didn't happen overnight. I'm not going to give away the farm here when I say Karen's a bit more type A than I am. It's just her natural personality. I'm not quite as strong in the type A personality that she is, but mine's more situational. I come from a world of aviation where you have to have intense concentration for periods of time, and then the rest of the time, it's like we were definitely a work hard, play hard type of environment. When we did that, and So imagine Top Gun, but with helicopters instead of jets. I mean, that was.
I can't wait to pick your brain after this.
That was the environment I lived in, and I loved it. I love being in a squadron. You know, the thing about an aviation squadron is there are always these little zings and zabs and jabs and whatever. Something like, you can never really turn your back on anybody, but from somebody outside comes in, you've united, and it's an all out thing. And it just happens without anybody even thinking about it. It's a environment like no other. And
the camaraderie.
It is.
Right.
It is. And one of the things that helped Karen and I when we first started seeing each other was that Karen has a private pilot's license. And so she understood aviation and the demands of it. And so I didn't have to explain, that, hey, I'm going to be gone. I'm doing a dangerous job. She got that. Okay. She chose to still see me anyway. I don't know why, but still I have to let her answer that question. But
Falcon Field Airport on the south side of Atlanta in Peachtree City. Are you familiar with it?
No.
No, never flown. You still currently have your private pilot's license?
I'm not current. I'm not current.
I, in a whole nother life, and then I'd like for you to share, I co-piloted a little Cessna with one of my dad's friends, Tommy Barrett. So he flew out of that airport all the time. My father was also in aviation maintenance.
oh, neat.
And I'll never forget just how incredibly sick I got because the cockpit of that aircraft was so small.
Yep.
The turbulence was insane. And I felt like the thing was going to fall apart while we were in the air. But I made it, and it was an experience. And that was probably, that's the last time I've co-piloted anything in the air. But I did then go on to go skydiving, and I elected to do so solo, not tandem. Which was an experience all on its own. But those are my only two wild aircraft stories.
Jumping out of a perfectly good aircraft has never made any sense to me, but still,
it was my
30th
birthday.
So,
Okay.
And I did it with my father, who had done it several times prior to me. Sure. And when I saw my dad jump out, which I made him do it first because I was like, he's not going to do it. You do it first because you're going out. I saw my dad, and then it was my turn. I was like, I got out on the ledge. And then I got back in. My body physically wouldn't let me do it. So they had to circle back around because we had already surpassed the launch point. Yeah. And then I did it. The guy's like, pony up, sister. You're already in the air. He's like, you got to do it. Yeah. Furthermore, we paid a lot of money for this experience. So I did it. But I say all that to say I would have done it tandem if I could go back and if I ever do it again so that I can enjoy the experience. My mind was so consumed with the 5 steps of keeping myself alive to pull my chute that I had to be in the air.
One of my most fun assignments was I was a flight instructor, and I taught helicopter instruction. I taught both in the air, and then I also taught, I'm a physics major, so I taught helicopter aerodynamics on the ground. But, there's the taking someone from, brand new, not knowing what any of the controls do, and then just getting them, one by one, and kind of building on things, So we're basically maneuvering the aircraft becomes second nature, so you can actually focus on why you're flying in the first place, because you're flying to do a mission. But right toward the end of my career, before I retired, I was on an admiral's staff overseeing the development of the Osprey. The Marine Corps was still, that's the tilt rotor aircraft that the Marines use now, and that's still just get ready to come into production. And so one of my duties was I was on the search and rescue team staff. That was my flying job, and so we were flying a big search and rescue helicopter, which is a lot bigger than the aircraft I flew when I was over in the Gulf. And so Karen, being active duty at the time, I asked her, hey, do you want to go? I'm going to go up do a mission here. Do you want to go up for a ride? And she says, yeah, whatever. Now, I could not give her one of the pilot seats because she didn't have the qualifications for that. But we're in a search and rescue helicopter, so she's sitting, we had several seats in the back, okay? Because this helicopter carries about maybe 10 people. Well, one thing she wasn't ready for was because when we got flying, because it was hot, instead of, there's not a door, okay? Basically the whole right side of the aircraft is one big door. So they just open the door, and basically the whole right side of the helicopter is gone. Okay,
didn't that vortex, air vortex?
No. We're not going that fast or that high. Okay, so it's just like it's kind of like if you were to try to open the door of your car going down the freeway. It's a similar type thing, except you don't have.
You're not going to get sucked.
Were you strapped in?
Well,
yes.
Thank goodness. She was strapped in the seat. But however, and this was the fun part is, because the helicopter is so big, they have the crewmen have these straps that basically it's a chest strap, goes around the strap, and it's long and it connects to one of there's a thing up, so they can get up and walk around, okay? But still, if something happens, they're not going to go anywhere, okay? So they offered, hey, do you want to have one of these? And initially, from what I understand, she didn't want to do it, but then eventually she did. So anyhow, we've been flying for about a half an hour, and I'm looking, and I've got a little side view mirror because we have a search and rescue hoist on the side. So I have to have a mirror down here so when we're using it, I can see what's going on. And I see this motion out of this mirror, and I'm looking down there, and there's a pair of boots just kind of sitting, and she's sitting on the edge of the thing with her feet hanging out,
Dangling.
hanging back and forth, whatever, such like that, And so I motioned to her because she's got a camera. I said, motion to her, hey, take a picture. And then there's those words, oh, I'm out of film.
This was back in the film days.
The Kodak,
so it's
yes.
gonna sound like we're ancient here.
No,
But
I was alive in this time.
Yeah, so... But that was, and it was then
Dangling with no fear. So you were connected to the...
yeah, I was
Okay.
connected, but it was a blast. I mean, you could see because we're flying right through the heart of DC. We're going right down the Potomac, and what was it, 80 feet, 100 feet?
We're about 80 feet. We were
Yeah.
essentially flying the same route when they had that.
I was gonna say,
they had that
yeah.
accident a few months ago. Yeah, we were flying that same
daylight,
route.
whatever,
Yeah,
everything.
exactly. So.
And it was fantastic. I mean, I knew I was not going to get that opportunity again. So yeah, I wanted to see it,
cool.
and it was great. It was a blast. Yeah, it was.
So tell us about your time. Okay, you brought us together that you guys met. Now cue Karen.
Oh gosh. Well, my career isn't nearly as exciting or glamorous or
Now listen.
whatever.
If you go back to because the Navy is not your first. I will make this one comment, but I want to make sure she brings this up. The Navy was not her first career.
Right.
Okay. But I mean, she did
It
not.
still could have been my first career if I could have. But now I worked in the private sector for about 6 years before I went into the Navy. So yeah, it was a little, bass backwards from most people to go. Yeah, so most people would go directly from college into the whatever, but I didn't. So, but I went into what is called the Civil Engineer Corps with the Navy. I was also Navy. And we're the ones that build and maintain the shore facilities and also have cognizance over the Seabees, the Naval Mobile Construction Battalions. And so my first duty station was in the Philippines, and which was good for me because although we're building and maintaining the shore facilities, my undergraduate degree was not civil engineering. So the neat thing about having that first tour there was that over there, we were basically teaching the Filipino contractors how to build to U.S. code because all the facilities on the bases, and believe it or not, I was actually on an Air Force base there, are built to U.S. code, all right? And let me just say that there was a dramatic difference between the Republic of the Philippines building codes and the United States of America building codes. So the benefit that I had from it was that I was, really being able to hone those fundamentals as well. So that was very good for me to get a good foundation there. But so it was two years in the Philippines. But then I had different positions, where I was either doing types of facilities management where, for example, after that I was at the Naval War College. And so then I was the officer in charge of the physical plant, to make sure that was maintained and any renovations, all that kind of stuff were done. And it goes on from there. But the only real operational tour I had was when I was the executive officer, that's second in command of Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 74. And there you've got about 630 personnel, officer and enlisted. And so I was the second in command for that. And we forwarded deployed to Okinawa and then to Puerto Rico. And but we were never called up for any operational type of conflict. It could have been, but it just didn't happen to be at the time I was there. So anyway, just held various positions there, and like I said, it just doesn't have near the excitement or glamour of, the aviation. But
one thing that I love most about you, Karen, is the amount of humility that you just exude humility.
She does.
I want to toot her horn.
I would sometime I would like to go to do one of these things where say, Karen, you talk about John's career, and John, you talk about Karen's career, and
you'll do it better for each other.
Well, we would be. I don't want to say better. I don't like to compare it like that, but I would say that
different perspectives.
Different perspectives, and I think that it would be. It's hard for us to appreciate our own accomplishments, and I also think it's hard for someone to appreciate the difference between like somebody like me and somebody who doesn't know anything about the military, for example. Okay. Whereas, I was an outsider looking at what she did, and she was essentially an outsider looking at what I did. So we were able to relate to someone that isn't in that world, and I think it's easier to communicate those kind of things. So, but it's
one of the big difference between John's career and mine was he was frontline. In the Civil Engineer Corps, we're not frontline; we're support. And we can get very close to that front line if something were to happen. I mean, certainly the battalions have been in Afghanistan, Iraq, and so on and so forth, and those conflicts. I didn't happen to be assigned in one when it happened, so I didn't have that experience. And we are often in very close support of the Marines, where the Marines usually, they're right up
there.
Front.
Yeah.
But we are always in an officially defensive role. They won't put us on the offensive, but we've got weaponry, and we're trained to defend those positions, if you will. But that's a big difference between what he did. He was frontline, and I was in the support.
Gotcha.
So.
Karen and I have shared a beautiful meal at Marlowe's before. Have you ever had Marlowe's Tavern?
I have.
Oh, I love
Karen and I have shared a beautiful meal at Marlowe's Tavern.
I'm sure you shared several beautiful meals.
Yeah.
Let's pretend we're going to Mexican. Do you guys eat Mexican in the Gwinnett area?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like Pepe's by chance?
Haven't had that particular one.
Where do you
Yeah,
guys go?
Pepe's.
Well, typically right now if we're going to eat Mexican, there's a little place in Tequila we go to because it's close to where we live.
Okay, what's it called?
So it's called El Jinete.
El Jinete. Let's say we're going to go eat there.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have a date there, okay?
Okay.
And we get queso and salsa and guacamole on the table.
Okay.
What are you dipping your chip in first?
Well,
Queso, guacamole, and salsa. I would go for the salsa.
Salsa first. Okay. Do you like guacamole and
I
queso?
do.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
I don't often put queso on my nachos. So it would I'd be going kind of back and forth between the guacamole and the salsa. And occasionally mix those two.
Occasionally. Okay. I got it.
salsa.
Salsa first? Wow. And then what?
Probably salsa only.
Salsa only. Not a queso fan.
No, it's not that. It's just that for me personally, for the queso and for guacamole, I like to have it with other parts of the meal than with the chip.
Oh, I understand. So you'd like it on top of your meal or with
So,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Same here.
So it looks like when we go eat Mexican, I'm going to be eating all the queso.
The other thing about it is I grew up in an area and at a time when fine dining was considered cheese whiz, and the queso always reminds me of cheese whiz.
We need to .com you with this whiz business, okay? You have a brand and you don't even know it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I've enjoyed this conversation tremendously. Enjoyed getting to know you, John. I think that we could continue to talk if our schedules did not have us somewhere else to go. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. I look forward to following the success of your ride and also sharing how money works with our listeners.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Amanda.
you.
Really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
us, Amanda. It's been a pleasure. It really has been.
And you can always connect with me at amandapearch.com. Visit amandapearch.com to learn more about purpose-driven podcasting. Enjoy these outtakes from our interview.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
It sounds like I'm sorry. I've just come out of a French class, so it sounds like a.
Relevance.
Do I have to face due north? You
No,
you
so also,
it's
I was gonna tell you-
You said it's directional. So I don't know.
You're funny.
It's like throat
No.
gets dry again.
You can Just move.
Yeah.
You can take it off and sing if you like.